What's up everyone, welcome to Ashley Talks Movies. Today's video is a review of The Brutalist. It's the new film from director Brady Corbet, who co-wrote the script with filmmaker Mona Fastvold. Adrien Brody stars as Laszlo Toth, a Hungarian-born Jewish architect who, after surviving the Holocaust, immigrates to the United States to begin a new life and pursue the American dream. But that pursuit doesn't come easy, and Laszlo struggles to adjust to his new life until he meets a wealthy industrialist, played by Pearce, who hires him for an ambitious project that will change his life. Before I jump into the review, do me a favor, like, comment, and please subscribe so you don't miss any of the videos I post here on the channel.
These are yours, yes?
Yes.
All of them?
Yes.
Tell me, why is an accomplished foreign architect shoveling coal here in Philadelphia?
I'm afraid it is not so simple.
The Brutalist is a very ambitious movie that's tackling a lot of big ideas, and I think pretty successfully. This is a movie that feels epic and sprawling, but also personal and intimate. And it's all told through the eyes of an immigrant named Laszlo, who has come to the United States after surviving the horrors of the Holocaust, and he's trying to rebuild his life. And it's not easy. And this movie tells his story over many decades. This movie's 3.5 hours long, and I knew that going into it, but what surprised me was just how quickly those 3 hours went by because of how invested I was in the story. This movie has a lot of ideas running through it. One of them is the idea of the American dream or the immigrant story. And what this movie does is tackle that from a more realistic approach. Often when the American dream story is told, it's told from a very idealized way. You know, that sort of rag to riches story. It's very optimistic, right? If you come here with nothing, you can rise up and achieve all your dreams. But here, it's showing the brutal reality of what it's like to come from nothing, to start your life over, to go into a completely new world where you don't really know all the rules and you're trying to make your way. And that's exactly what Laszlo is doing. You know, he's coming over to America and he fully buys into this idea that he's going to make it, right? And even from that first shot of him arriving in America where he looks up and sees the Statue of Liberty, you know, he has this sort of grand view, this grand idea of what America is going to be like. But we, the audience, kind of get the sense that it's not going to be that easy just because of how that shot is framed with the Statue of Liberty being slightly skewed. This movie is also telling the immigrant story from the perspective of an artist. And anyone who's ever been an artist or had some kind of creative project or creative endeavor will relate to this idea of, you know, what the artist has to go through, the tension, the pull that the artist faces when their vision doesn't quite align with the person or thing that's providing the resources they need to make that vision a reality. And that often happens with creative projects, right? There's the people with the money, the business people, who often lack the artistic knowledge or the know-how, and that is often in conflict with the artist and their vision. And so the artist often has to make sacrifices, or what sacrifices are they willing to make for their vision to become a reality. This movie has excellent performances, and it's no surprise that Adrien Brody is just phenomenal as Laszlo. He is just such a talented actor, and he once again delivers just an amazing performance. And I think this is one of his best performances, you know, of his career. He is able to really capture the essence of a character who is somewhat lost, who is trying to find his way, seems like a genuinely good person, but who's also deeply, deeply flawed. And as the movie goes on, you know, those layers of Laszlo are revealed. And this is a person who is very passionate about his art and is often butting heads with, again, the person who is providing the resources to make, you know, his artistic vision a reality. And he's also a person who makes mistakes and decisions that often cause him to have the troubles in his life that he has, and someone who has an addiction that also clouds his judgment. And Adrien Brody is just amazing, amazing. You see the passion that Laszlo has about his art on his face. You also see the pain that he feels whenever he's dealing with some of these harder parts of his life. And it's just an amazing, amazing performance. And Adrien Brody should get every award that comes his way. I mean, he's deserving of it all. The praise, the accolades, because he's just absolutely phenomenal. And Guy Pearce is also outstanding as Harrison Van Buren, who, takes Laszlo under his wing and becomes his benefactor. And there's a charm and a sinisterness about this particular character that Pearce is able to really portray so well. And again, a lot of this has to do with the fact that this movie slowly reveals these characters. And then Felicity Jones, who plays Laszlo's wife, is also wonderful. And when she arrives, she adds a nice little bit of contrast to Laszlo at this point in his life, because up until that point, we've just seen him and his struggles. And when she arrives, there's a very interesting dynamic that happens because, he's been, missing her and they've been separated and now they're finally together. But they have to kind of relearn being a couple. They've been apart for so long that in many ways they're strangers. And so you get to learn a little bit more about Laszlo through her. And Felicity Jones is just so great because she plays this character with such sincerity, and she's so kind and gentle, but also very fierce when she has to be. This movie also has some really beautiful cinematography, and a lot of that has to do with how these particular scenes, these shots are framed. And a lot of it has to do with lighting and how shadows are shown, and also how they show the architecture. And there's a number of scenes in this movie that show different bits of architecture, especially once Laszlo starts working again and he's working on these different projects. It's just really beautiful architecture that just feels like it's from a painting or a magazine. This movie's 3.5 hours long, and I already mentioned that I didn't really feel that runtime because it just sort of breezed by. And I think part of it was because, the story is very engaging, but also because this movie is broken up into 2 halves and there's a 15-minute intermission. The first half, I think, is the strongest of the two, mostly because I think there's some really rich and engaging storytelling that's happening there. And it feels all sort of wondrous and new, and you're being introduced to this character and you're kind of following his struggles. And then the second half is good too, but it also starts to get a little wobbly. There's some narrative choices that are made that I think kind of don't align with the rest of the movie. And I won't get into specifics because I don't want to, do spoilers here, but some of them felt unnecessary. One of the things I really appreciated about this movie was that as a whole, it felt like the director trusted the audience to, connect the dots. It didn't feel like there was a lot of hand-holding, right? Like there's metaphors and subtext, and the director trusts you to understand what is happening. Then you get to the second half, and there are certain choices that are made that I think where it's like the director says, well, actually, I'm going to explain all this to you because maybe you don't understand what I'm referring to here. Maybe you don't understand the metaphor that I'm making. And there's one particular scene in this movie, again, I'm not doing spoilers, but there's one particular scene in this movie where I honestly didn't feel like it was necessary. I understood what the director was saying there, but again, so much of what was explicitly said in that scene was alluded to in many other parts of the movie. And so I didn't feel like it had to be so on the nose. And it just felt like the director decided not to trust the audience and said, actually, I'm going to explain it to you and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean here. So here you go. And also the ending and the epilogue of this movie didn't land for me for pretty much the same reasons, where it just felt like there was a lot of explaining happening and it didn't need it. It didn't need it. When I found out this movie had a budget of like $10 million, I was actually surprised because, that is on the lower end of movie budgets. But this movie, as I've said before, feels very epic in scope and scale. It feels very, sprawling. And I think part of it is because, there's these really big ideas here. And the filmmaker really knows what story he was trying to tell. And the way this movie is shot, the beautiful cinematography, the big ideas, also the great performances here really make this movie feel bigger than the budget would suggest. And I think that is just, indicative of how well this movie is made and just how, brilliant it is. So even though the second half of this movie was weaker for me, and I don't think it was as strong as the first half of the movie and there's some questionable, narrative choices that were made, I think overall this film is just excellent. I think, it's worthy of all the praise that it's getting. It is literally one of the best films to come out in 2024. And I'm really curious to see how well it does, the rest of the award season. And I'm really curious to see what Brady Corbet does in the future. So those are my thoughts on The Brutalist. Have you seen the movie? Do you plan on seeing the movie? And if you have, share your thoughts in the comments. While you're here, like and subscribe and stick around for more videos like this.